I love, 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 love the new Grapevine app, and I can't stop telling people about it. It makes everything so easy. Like the little letter that I had published in the August Grapevine, I did not write that. Okay. I called in with my phone. I had just listened to the episode. I called in with my phone and I said what I said, and they translated it into that letter. I mean, how easy could that be? I mean, anyone can write or even speak to this, share some little joy in their life of something that they've discovered. Call when you have that moment, right?
I heard it through the grapevine.
Welcome. It's the AA Grapevine Half-Hour Variety Hour featuring the collected voices of Alcoholics Anonymous. I'm Sam, an alcoholic in Palm Springs, California.
And I am Alice, an alcoholic in lovely Oakland, California.
Alice, do you ever get angry?
Absolutely, I still get angry, but it looks different than it did when I got here. When I'm angry now, it doesn't happen as often, it doesn't last as long, and it's not as deep as it once was. But absolutely, as you know, I've been luxury homeless and sort of moving around. And then I drove cross country into a full-blown renovation. And I was removing some tile in the bathroom yesterday. And I got the hammer out. And I got to take out some anger on the tiles. And it was really surprisingly refreshing. I didn't even know I had that anger in me.
Just before we sat down to record, I found this fantastic little AI thing that you punch in your mood and what's got you angry.
Yeah.
And then this is the output for my renovation is taking too long. It says to you, I totally get it. Renovating can be such a frustrating and overwhelming process. But first, let me tell you how impressed I am with you for taking on this project. It takes a lot of courage and determination. You must be doing something right because it's taking shape, even if it's slower than you'd like. Here's the thing, it's normal for things to not go as planned, and it's okay to feel frustrated. What can help is to take it one step at a time. Focus on the progress you've made so far and celebrate those small wins. You got this.
I love you, Sam. That is so incredibly kind. And I want to contrast that to me bashing the tiles yesterday. Thank you.
Well, you can thank our AI overlords for that.
Overlords.
My grandmother had a fantastic trick that she used. The recycling wasn't picked up at your home at the time. There was recycling down the street in a dumpster, and one was for glass, one was for cardboard. She would go down there and she would throw bottles and jars into that dumpster and shatter them, and she would just feel so good about it.
Being recovered doesn't mean I'm not human anymore.
Yeah.
I still have the full range. I get tired, I get sad, I get angry. I just have better tools to deal with it. And so, yay to your grandmother.
It's what we do with it.
That's right. What do we do with the anger? What do we do with the sadness?
Yeah.
What do we do?
Anger, if I let it fester, if I feed it, that's when it can wind up becoming a resentment, or I wind up going through the world, stepping on the toes of people all around me, just being a total jerk.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. Underneath anger, almost always is some fear.
Yep.
I'm afraid of something. And anger is a stronger, it feels like a more powerful emotion. And so the question I often ask is, it's not why I'm disturbed. It's why am I disturbable? And that's almost always because I'm afraid of something.
Hey, Alice, we got this email about a share heard in the rooms. It's kind of like a hashtag heard in a meeting. Here's a share from my step study on Monday night. My sponsor and I discussed my tendency to get angry with others at work. I mentioned that I felt I needed to maintain a certain level of anger at work, around 10%, to be taken seriously. In response, my sponsor suggested an exercise. Create 3 columns. In the first column, list everyone I got angry with in the past month. In the second column, Note the reasons for my anger with each person. Finally, in the third column, list anyone who thanked me for my anger. Unsurprisingly, no one thanked me. That's from Vince R. in San Diego, California. Thank you, Vince.
I love that. I think what the sponsor's saying is, how's that working for you?
Yeah.
The part that I love, Vince, don't be mad at me. Come on, 10%. Come on. I'm angry, man. 10% has never been my number, right?
I mean, I'd have to say 10% is just stern, right?
Yeah, I don't know the 10%. This delusion that I have, I'm not talking about you, Vince, that if I'm angry, it will make people take me seriously, or it will make people respect me, or it will make people do what I want. And it's just not true. Like, anger never gets me as much as kindness.
You're absolutely right. I think you and I could sit here and talk about anger all day.
Oh,
But, Alice, who's our guest today?
today we have Heather C. from Conway, Arkansas.
But first, the news. The first international online intergroup of Alcoholics Anonymous online convention occurs over 3 days, October 25th through the 27th. Each day, there's a 30-minute opening followed by 4 streams of meetings for 6 hours, and then everyone's back together for a 30-minute closing. All time zones and a multitude of groups from countries all over the world are participating. You can register by going to aa-intergroup.org/convention 2024.
You can give a gift subscription of Grapevine or Lavinia.
Grapevine has a long waiting list of incarcerated members who want one. Get your group, district, area, or AA friends to join in.
It's easy. Go to aagrapevine.org and look for Carry the Message at the top of the site.
Hi, everybody. This is Heather C. from Conway, Arkansas. My sobriety date is February 10th of 2003. My home group is the Graced Women's Group, who meets Monday nights at 5:45 at the Presbyterian Church on Prince Street between the Chick-fil-A and the high school. And we'll be glad to have any women come to our meeting because we are strictly stag. We are a closed meeting, so you also have to have a desire not to drink. It's interesting how I'm the phone person for our group on the meeting list, and people will call up, new people, what does closed mean? Is that like a doctor's office, right? And so I get to explain to them what that means. I'm digressing. Anyway.
No, what does that mean? What's the difference between an open meeting and a closed meeting?
Okay, so open meeting is like anybody in the world can come to the meeting. It's mostly like for community people. We're a college town, so we have a lot of like nursing students, psychology students, and people like that come to our open meetings. That's a requirement for their schooling, which is super cool, right? Health professionals getting educated about AA, right? But a closed meeting is just for alcoholics and people who have a desire not to drink. So any community members who would come to a closed meeting, we would say, oh, here's a schedule. You can go to these open meetings.
Heather, thank you so much for joining us. And you've called in a few times too.
I totally have. I might be an addict of the podcasts. I just love listening to it. I've totally listened to it more than once, all the episodes.
Well, we're really glad that you're a listener. Tell me, Heather, what was going on back in 2003 that would make you go to an Alcoholics Anonymous meeting?
Okay, so my story actually starts back in 1987. It was the year after I graduated from high school, and I already knew I had a problem, and I kept coming to the rooms and like I fell in love with the fellowship first, and there was a clubhouse near where I lived, and it was open 24/7. They had like a, little coffee shop, and they had cribbage boards on the tables, and you could like hang out. And I knew if I was there, I could stay sober, right?
Hmm.
And it took me literally 16 years to commit to doing all the steps and have no lurking notions or reservations and actually work all the steps and decide to figure out what's going on in here that makes me keep running away.
So you were going to meetings starting in 87. How were you going to
Yes.
meetings all along up through 2003 or
No, no, it's like this bumpy thing that happens called life, and a lot of marriages and trying to go to school and having children. So 87 to 89, I can't put more than say a week to 30 days, maybe. Okay.
okay.
I hit my parents' bottom in 89. That was me being on the streets of Portland, Oregon, homeless, gray, washed out, looking like a skeleton. My dad gave me up for dead. He was able to tell that story at my first year birthday. Going to treatment, I was able to put together more than 90 days, and then I got drunk again. I kept keeping my play places and my playmates and my playthings, right? And, I dabble in AA, I love sober drugs from the moment I met you, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I knew AA works. I actually brought people to meetings who are still sober today who got sober in 1987, okay? Which is super cool for them, but it's not my story, right?
Mm-hmm.
So fast forward, I get pregnant with my first daughter in 1990, and how I find out I'm pregnant is I'm having lower abdominal pain, and I go to the emergency room because I don't have health insurance, and they tell me, okay, you're pregnant and you have a bladder infection, and this is what we're going to do about the bladder infection. And I was like, whoa, wait a minute, back it up, like the scratching record sound, you know.
I'm sure Don's going to insert that for us.
Yeah. So I like have $80, and that's all I have to my name, and I use that to buy a ticket to go to where my sister is. I'm in Boston at the time. I had done a geographic. So I'm at the train station. I'm still a smoker at this point. I'm 3 months pregnant. I know I need to get sober. I know I need to do something. I know what I need to find you, right? And Boston's like I can't be jamming down in Boston anymore. It's like freaky place, and I didn't like it. At the train station, and I see a guy smoking outside in a wheelchair, and he like hands me the cigarette, and he goes, oh yeah, this is my last vice left, and you people are the only people who ever say these crazy things to me. And I'm like, you're not a friend of Bill W, are you? And he was like, why, yes I am. And so it's an 8-hour train ride from Boston to Philadelphia. And on the train ride, we figure out my sobriety date. It was March 10th of 1990. And because that was the first day that I knew for certain that I hadn't used anything, okay? And he gets off the train with me in Philadelphia, pays for a taxi cab, and takes me to the clubhouse that's near to where my sister lives, which is where I'm going to stay. And he introduces me to you there in Philadelphia. And he said, this girl really needs help. And here you go. Here she is, like a little duckling. Like, here you go. You get to take care of this girl. And they totally did. They came and got me for meetings. I didn't have any identification. They took me to the Social Security office. They took me to the place where you get identification and food stamps and just all this stuff. They got me hooked up with this place called Mercy Hospice in Philadelphia. The deal with how I got to stay there was I had to commit to going to a 6-month outpatient treatment, and I went to meetings, and I was on foot all over the place in Philadelphia, and I'm just like this little suburbs girl, like plopped in the middle. I'm literally down in town in Center City, Philadelphia. Anyways, so the guy on the train, he was literally an angel. He gave me a business card. He made me promise to call him when I had 6 months sober. And I called him. It was a business. I called up there, and they had no idea who he was. I persisted, and I wound up talking to the director there. And the director says, I've never heard of this person. And so he was literally on that train just to help me get hooked up with you.
Beautiful.
My daughter was born 6 months and a week later.
Heather, I would love to hear all of this story of 1987 up to 2003, but we're only a half hour variety hour.
I know it. I know it.
So in 2003, that is your sobriety date.
Yes.
When you picked up that start over chip,
Uh,
what was different?
Okay, it's literally the day after I smoked a joint with a friend to celebrate my 9 months of sobriety. And I didn't even reset my sobriety date at that point. It wasn't until 18 months after 2003 that I was carrying the message into a treatment center. And this woman she said, I told her story about the marijuana maintenance program, except for she got drunk. It was like my date was tattooed on her forehead, and I knew I had to get honest. Like I complicated myself right out of the room so many times, so I don't want to be too complicated, and I definitely don't want to be too complicated for the podcast.
Well, it is a simple program, the things that we're asked to do. I reset
Yeah.
my date. My sobriety date
Mm-hmm.
was 2003. That's the last
Mm-hmm.
time I had a drink. But in 2012, I reset my date because I used poppers and diet pills in a way that's not sober for me. That honesty had to
Mm-hmm.
show up.
Yes.
So in 2003, from that date going forward, what did you do?
I got a sponsor who was super strict, and she taught me these really cool lessons, but I didn't think they were cool at the time, like how to be punctual, right? I have a car, I can drive myself to the meeting, right? But she's like, I'm gonna pick you up at 6 for the meeting, and I'm like, okay, and there's like this walkway that goes out to the curb where she's gonna pick me up, and I'm going out the door and locking the door, and she's pulling up to the curb, and I'm walking down to her, and she looks at me and she drives away. And I'm like, ah, and so I have to like unlock my door, go in my house, get in the car, go to the meeting myself and go, what's up? How come you didn't wait for me? And she was like, I told you I was going to pick you up at 6, and you're supposed to be standing there waiting for me on the curb. If you're on time, you're late. And I needed to totally relearn everything.
Mm.
I don't know how to manage my finances, take a shower, keep my house clean. I don't know how to do any of that stuff. I'm like so self-absorbed. Uh,
Yeah.
and you guys retaught me everything. You taught me how to relate to other human beings. Like I was so confused about why are all these men hitting on me all the time? As she was like, well, maybe you might want to choose who you sit by in the meeting, how you dress, just the different things like that I was just like so unaware of what I was doing, what I was exuding out of myself.
So many of us grow up in Alcoholics Anonymous. We get here, and
Yeah.
no matter how old we are, we often have put drinking in front of our emotional, spiritual development. And so I love you saying Alcoholics Anonymous taught
Mhm.
me how to be an adult.
Yes, absolutely, Alice. Thank you. I just like really leaned into everything she had to teach me, and like, I'm at work and I'm having trouble with a certain coworker, and it's really hard, right? And she's having me pray prayers in this sort of in a mantra sort of way, like the serenity prayer followed by the third step prayer. And she's like, if you get really upset, just go to the bathroom. You're not obligated to sit there at your desk and deal with it, how you're feeling in the moment. You can excuse yourself. You don't have to power through these things. I'm like, okay, okay. And there's this one situation, this one cracks me up, like, where I was working for my stepmom, and I come to find out later on that the workplace was a hostile work environment, because I don't know who she's going to be when she walks in the door. If I'm going to be the fair-haired stepchild, or if I'm going to be blasted in the middle of my staff meeting. It was really, really hard. She had me write, she was like, okay, you just write down all your angers, like you beating on your tiles, right? You just write down all your anger and you just keep writing until you get to your part. And I was like, okay. So I get there, and she's a smoker. So she sits on the right side of the love seat at her house, and I sit on the left side, and she's smoking. She's got her coffee over there. And I think I'm going to be vindicated. I'm going to read to her my whole thing that I've told about all terrible things done to me. And I start reading it to her, and she was like, oh, hold on a second. And she starts flipping my pages, right? She reaches over with her left hand. She's flipping my pages. And she's like, I wrote my part right at the top of the page. And she goes, oh, there it is. My part. Read that part. And I read that part to her. she,
Let's cut to
she,
the chase
The
here.
good part, yes.
and then I had to put her on my 4th step because I was mad at her because she wouldn't listen to me.
I have heard that if your sponsor's not on your 4th step, you're not doing it right.
But yeah, she was really great. She was so much fun too. We went on these women camping trips together, and we'd like all be piled in my little Corolla. I mean, like 8 women piled in this little tiny car, and we're like got Aretha Franklin on the radio, and we're got the windows down, and we're like screaming, yelling, and singing with Aretha. And just so much fun. It's just hilarious, you know.
Well, I love the story of like the tough learning part, but also the fun fellowship part of early
Yeah.
sobriety.
Oh yeah. 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 She's the whole reason why I keep a women's home group. It was just a meeting when I moved here because they had just started it. And it turned into a group at about the time I really needed something extra. And I became the GSR for my home group. That actually launched my love of AA. I was actually a Grapevine rep.
Oh, cool.
That's when I like put down roots into, oh my word, A is so awesome. And I like went to my first SWARSA, and you probably want me to tell you what that is. It's the Southwest Regional AA Service Assembly. And I learned so much stuff, and I just like fell more in love with AA, and I just, oh dear, there's so much to AA, and there's so much to what I can do to help AA carry the message.
When you talk about service, you light up.
Oh yeah. Well, you know, you don't know until you do it, right?
Mhm.
And there's so many people who are like, oh, I don't want to do that. You know, I so look forward to the area, the district, the regional events where not only do I get to see my people, where my tribe just keeps growing, but I also get to learn more stuff. And yeah.
It sounds like it's been a fantastic journey on this path. What I would like to know is, what does an average week in your life look like today?
Oh, I work Monday through Friday, and then Monday evenings I go to my home group, 5:45 on Mondays, and I always go early and stay late because that's just how we roll, you know.
Mhm. Yeah.
And Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday evenings right now, I am actually meeting my daughter at a community center, and she and I have an adult relationship today. And she reached out to me and said, hey, Mom, I'm at a desk job and I think that I need to walk. Do you want to walk with me? So we meet 3 days a week and we walk together.
Oh, I love that.
And then Friday nights, I go to a 6 p.m. meeting. It's called Animal House at our local AA club.
Oh, I
And
love the name of that group, Animal House. That's
yeah,
great.
yeah, it's pretty great. And then Saturday mornings, I go to Saturday Morning Live. That was my home group when I first moved here. Sunday mornings, I go to another meeting, and that's also Animal House group. It's 10 o'clock in the morning on Sunday. And my time when I'm at home is spent with my husband, who I met in AA conference, and we were both doing service work. He was working registration. I brought the Grapevine to our state convention, and that's where we met. We struck up a friendship, and then we dated for 2 whole years, and we came up with a philosophy while we were dating: don't anticipate and embrace uncertainty. And that's actually what I was telling myself before this podcast. I was like praying and telling myself I needed to just be myself and be a member of AA. And just, that's what you guys want. That's why you reached out to me.
Be in the moment.
Yeah.
Thank
Well,
you.
that's where my higher power lives. He lives right here, right now.
The only place I can ever be is right here, right now.
Mm-hmm.
Love that you met your life partner in service. Is this a life you could have imagined?
Not even close.
Mm.
Actually, it's so funny. My mother is so amazing. Like, she's given me a couple of different pieces of advice in my life. One is to carry a penny in my pocket because it reminds me that it just takes a little change. Okay. And I do. I carry it in my pocket with my tip, and it reminds me that it just takes a little change. But it also says on there, in God we trust, and it reminds me who has the power, right? And then the other thing that she advised me when I was young and she saw I was boy crazy, she was like, just go live your life, figure out who you are and what you like doing, and go do that. And then sooner or later, you're going to be doing that, and you'll look next to you, and there will be somebody else doing that same exact
Yes.
thing. Guess what? I worked the steps, I got good at being me, and then I met him, the person that God meant for me to be with. And he was doing the same thing, serving Alcoholics Anonymous.
You ended up telling us a love story.
Yes, you
But
did.
it's a love story with AA, though. It starts there.
Heather, I hate to break up this party,
Oh, darn it.
but
Oh,
we do have a segment that we want to move along to.
We have a newcomer ask question. Why can't I take credit for my own sobriety? The drinking was my fault. Can't the recovery be my success? Why is it about leaving it to my higher power's grace?
Wow. That's a good question because, I mean,
mhm.
the success of my sobriety has absolutely depended upon me doing some things.
Yeah.
I've had to take actions that I didn't necessarily want to take, show up when I didn't want to show up, and say what I didn't want to say or didn't believe, even.
Mm.
Have I taken part in my sobriety? Absolutely. But the thing is, my experience of a higher power continually shows up to be the people that I encounter in recovery. And I could not do this on my own. I tried so many times to stop drinking. I'm not going to drink tonight. It wasn't even I'm not going to drink anymore. It's not I'm not going to drink tonight. And I would not succeed.
Yeah. I didn't know what I didn't know when I got here, right? I got here and I only knew what I knew. And it was really limited because my world had become really small drinking.
Mm.
I had a perception. When I make Alcoholics Anonymous a way of life, I grow from perception to perspective. And when I grow to perspective, I begin to realize that my best effort is useless unless I'm connected to a power that opens doors, that takes down barriers, that arrests the compulsion that I had to drink. I couldn't do that on my own. Like, in fact, I've learned hard lessons. I can't stop drinking on my own. I can't stop being selfish on my own. I can't stop being resentful on my own. I recognize those things in myself. And then through the practice of these spiritual principles that are not mysterious, they're the steps, I get a new point of view. Man, all I did was show up and put a little effort in. I didn't create the blessing that is my life. And it took a long time for me to see the whole story there.
Yeah. Heather, what do you think about this?
Well, it's interesting. This is the question I get to answer because our state convention theme this weekend that I was at was God accomplished the miracle, a quote from the Big Book. There was speakers, of course, and several of them mentioned that in their talk. And I loved the Sunday morning speaker this morning. He was saying how my disease that's up here, I have distorted thinking, and I can't always see the truth. Sometimes I see something that's false and I think it's the truth, or I see something that's true and I think it's false. And so I need you, and I need my higher power to help me distinguish what is actually true. And so whenever I think I'm doing this, I'm in trouble. I
Yeah.
spent so much time in my sobriety trying to figure this out, trying to feel right. Somebody else this weekend who was talking about the third step. Yeah, we say that third step prayer, and unless we follow that decision through with action, we really haven't taken the third step, right?
Yeah.
I've got to take that action so I can have my higher power active in my life and being the power. I've surrendered, but I need to go all the way through to that spiritual awakening so I can have my higher power working in my life.
Yep, here's a gift. That's what my higher power is saying, but I'm not going to put it in your lap. You're going to have to reach out your arms and accept it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not asking for a lot of work from you here, but you do need to meet me part way.
Mm-hmm.
And if all we get is sober, we get robbed.
There's a richness and a depth that I can have with other human beings, not just my partner, but with the newcomer girl that rode back from me from the conference and stayed with me this weekend. There's a camaraderie that we can have with a fellow alcoholic that we can't have with anybody else. And the higher power, I feel like there's that, I don't know, sort of namaste type of thing. The God in me sees the God in you. And we have a special connection with other alcoholics.
Indeed, we do. Heather, thank you so much for joining us. It's been wonderful to get to chat with you. I mean, like I said earlier, you totally have just pulled us in. And let's just keep going. Let's stop recording and keep going. But thank you. Thank you.
Really, really thank you.
The Grapevine strives to be self-supporting.
Please subscribe to the magazine or app and visit the Grapevine online store.
The app is free in your phone's app store and has great content and features provided at no cost to you.
But if you subscribe, you get so much more. And you support all things Grapevine, including this podcast.
Oh, yeah.
Only $2.99 a month.
This joke submitted by Jack A. of Suffield, Connecticut.
Hey, Lloyd, can you do the lead to open the meeting tonight?
I've got a great 20-minute lead on the topic of humility, but there aren't enough people here to make it worthwhile.
It's really not that funny.
Please listen closely as our options have changed.
Thanks for joining us. The AA Grapevine Half-Hour Variety Hour is posted every Monday and is produced by AA Grapevine, Inc. We don't speak for AA as a whole. We share the experience, strength, and hope of members to help others recover from alcoholism. All things Grapevine are available at aagrapevine.org, including our app and how to get in touch with us. Find us on Instagram and YouTube. If you want to know more about AA, visit aa.org or search online for Alcoholics Anonymous and your city.
That was freaking adequate.
Put that in.